जय प्रसाद पूरे सर्वासा जय प्रसाद पूरे सर्वासा चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्म जन्म प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्म जन्म प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्ति जावते अविज विनाश जाते वेद गाय जा रचरित श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदम जनारा बंधु लोकना लोकेरा जीवाना प्रभु करो दया हे मोरे पद छाया प्रभु करो दया हे मोरे पद छाया जय बेजास गुसु त्रिभुवाना श्रीला प्रभुपाद पतित पावना जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 ओम विष्णु पदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादिशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदे गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept our humble obeisances.
Jai. So what's you've got some
We are
another audio track. Is that you or is that somebody here?
it's in the temple hall, Prabhuji. They are just showing the there are some devotees in the temple hall. Also, they wanted to show you the darshan of Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan, Sri Sri Gaur Nitai.
Very good.
So
what?
I'll just give a brief introduction about you, Prabhuji. Then you can start the class.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you. So we are very fortunate to have His Grace Hare Sauri Prabhu with us. So I'll give a brief introduction about Prabhuji. Hare Sauri Prabhu was born in England on November 17th, 1950. In May 1971, he immigrated to Australia, where on the second day of his arrival, he met the members of the newly emerging Krishna consciousness movement. He was duly accepted as an initiated disciple by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada on April 9th, 1972 in Sydney. In August 1975, he moved to the newly opened ISKCON Krishna Balram Temple in Vrindavan, India, where he served as temple commander. In November of the same year, he joined Srila Prabhupada's personal entourage, remaining as his Divine Grace servant for 16 months. In March of 1977, Srila Prabhupada appointed him ISKCON's governing body commissioner for Australia, New Zealand, and Indonesia, a service he performed for over 7 years. During that period, he oversaw the growth of the ISKCON society in the South Seas from 4 temple and ashrams to 17, including 4 farming communities, 2 schools, and several restaurants. He was also instrumental in establishing branches of the Bhakti Vedanta Book Trust in Australia and Indonesia. In 1986, he began the work of transforming the diary he kept while traveling with Srila Prabhupada into a book, or rather a series of books. In 1990, he moved to America and worked as publisher for the Back to Godhead magazine, the Krishna Conscious Movement's spiritual periodical, for a year. He lives at ISKCON World Headquarters in Mayapur, West Bengal, India, with his wife and daughter, where he continues to publish his memories of being with Srila Prabhupada. He also served as a director of the Bhaktivedanta Research Center in Kolkata, an academic resource of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and an archive library of ancient Vaishnava texts. These ancient texts are being both digitized and preserved in the original state. So, being a personal servant of Srila Prabhupada is not easy, because Prabhupada used to travel to so many countries in a year. And Prabhupada, the moment he used to step into some country, there is no question of jet lag. He would just continue, change his watch, and continue the next course of activities. So it's very, very challenging to be serving Srila Prabhupada as a servant. But Prabhuji has served so nicely. So today we are very fortunate to have Prabhuji, and he will share his experiences with Srila Prabhupada, especially at ISKCON Hyderabad. I think Prabhuji visited twice with Srila Prabhupada in 1976 at ISKCON Hyderabad. So we are very fortunate to have Prabhuji with us today. So let us welcome Prabhuji by loudly chanting 3 times. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you very much. So we are also trying to have this translation in Telugu and Hindi separately. So those, we gave those details in the poster. Those who want in Telugu or Hindi, they can join in that particular Zoom. Hare Krishna.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm just trying to. Yes. All right. Can we sing Jai Radhamada first?
Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, somebody, you can sing it. Or my throat's not good enough for singing anymore. But
Okay.
if somebody can just sing 2 minutes, Jai Radhamada.
Yeah. Okay, Prabhuji. I'll sing. Fine. Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Kunja Bihari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yugadharma Shila Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Okay. I'm just trying to find my place here. Just 1 second. Can we mute that background
Yes,
talk that's going on there? Whatever it is.
Prabhuji. We have muted on everything. We have muted everything, Prabhuji.
I can't speak with somebody else giving a class in the background. Can you somehow or another mute that other classes?
Okay, 1 minute. Is there? We have muted everything, Prabhuji.
There's a problem here. We've got the
you're-
Mayapur class is going on.
Okay. Okay. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, we also have His Grace Anand Mahaprabhu, Srila Prabhupada's disciple. He has been serving at ISKCON Hyderabad from the last 45 years, especially for the Telugu BBT. So we want to just...
I can't hear a thing, Prabhu. I've got, there's somebody giving a class in the background. It's very loud. It sounds like Suji Tandria is translating the class in Mayapur. So how do we block that out?
Okay, somebody is giving a class behind you, something like that. It's disturbing you.
I'm in my house. I'm in my own house. This what's coming on now, this is Suji Tandria translating for Jayapataka Swami. And they're over at the temple.
Okay.
I mean, we can't do anything unless that gets blocked off.
Okay. Oh.
Who set your microphone system up?
Here we are not getting any such sound, Prabhuji.
I've got a whole class booming in my ears. I can't.
Okay, maybe in your laptop, maybe that is also on. That particular Mayapur, maybe you can just check and off it. Maybe on...
cut it down now.
No, it's gone, Prabhuji. Because we are not able to hear anything from Mayapur Srimad Bhagavatam class.
Okay, well, the ISKCON temple, it says.
Yeah, he's one of the brahmacharis. He's just connected, Prabhuji.
Well, I don't know what's going on. There's no sound right. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, we are able to hear, Prabhuji.
I got
perfect. We are not having any noise from our side. In the sense we are only able to hear. We are able to hear your voice perfectly. There's no problem.
That's the point. It's if I'm speaking, and then this other audio stream is coming in at the same time, I can't even hear what I'm supposed to.
Oh.
I can't even hear myself what to speak about.
Okay.
How are we going to resolve this? It's not possible to give a class when I've got this booming in my ears.
Okay. Maybe in Prabhuji, if maybe if you can just once check if any of the Mayapur live telecast is going on your laptop or desktop, you can off it.
All right, let's see.
You can.
Oh, okay, well, I've got Mayapur TVs on.
Yeah, you can off it, Prabhuji.
All right, we got it.
Okay, okay.
Well, I'm sorry about that. I'm not very computer literate, but
Now it's okay, Prabhuji.
yeah, now I got you.
Okay, okay. Now I understand. Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so what's the program? I speak for what, 30 minutes or 45 minutes,
Maybe
and
for
then after that we can
question
do
answer.
questions and answers.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, so I was asked to say something about Hyderabad in particular.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So, we'll start there. Personally, the first time I ever went to Hyderabad was in 1975. I'd been staying in Mayapur for the festival there. 1975 was the first time that I came to India, and the program was that we had about a week or so, or 10 days in Mayapur, and then we went for 1 week to Hyderabad, and then we came up from Hyderabad to Mathura Vrindavan, and then they opened the Krishna Balaram Mandir on Ram Navami. So that was my first taste of India. It was the first time I'd been to India, and I took an instant liking to it. So I decided that I would like to leave Australia, where I was serving there in, let's see, Sydney. I wanted to leave there and come back to the Krishna Balaram Mandir, which I did do. So for me, it was, I think, the best year in Krishna consciousness that I had, or at least best period, beginning in 75 with going to Mayapur and then to Hyderabad. I don't remember much about the Hyderabad festival, only that apparently they've been having a drought, and when our pandal began, it started to pour with rain. And Prabhupada said that was a direct result of our performance of the Sankirtan Yajna. So from there, I went, as I say, I attended the festival in Vrindavan for the opening of Krishna Balaram Mandir, and then from there we went back to our respective countries. But I was unsettled, so within a couple of months I decided to move to Krishna Balaram Mandir, which I did do it in early August. Then let's see. Prabhupada later in the year, in mid-April, he went to he undertook his last world tour, because we didn't know it was the last one that we would see him do, but we left. No, I'm just trying to sort things out a little bit. Hang on, hold on a second. All right, we've got a problem. No, I've got a problem here. Can you hear me?
We are able to hear you, Prabhuji.
Okay, I'm just having a problem here with setting up my Zoom. I'm sorry about this. It was working before.
Okay.
Here we go. All right. So in late November, early December of 1975, I was fortunate enough to be asked to do Prabhupada's massages whilst he was staying in Delhi for a few days. And then from that, my service on Prabhupada's personal party began. So I ended up being with Prabhupada for nearly a year and a half. And I was keeping a diary all the time that I was with him. So that diary now has been published in 5 volumes. It's a daily diary, and it covers the time when Prabhupada came down to Hyderabad. First of all, to open the temple there, that was in Janmashtami of 1976. And then again, we came down to Hyderabad on, I think, December the 2nd to inaugurate what Prabhupada was hoping would be it was his plan to begin ISKCON's first real Varnashram system there. We'd been in Vrindavan for September, October, November, and then in 1st or 2nd of December, that was when Prabhupada flew to Hyderabad for his 2nd visit there in a year. And I remember we were in Vrindavan, and the day that we left, they brought the car to the side gate there. All right, somebody's saying here the sound is very slow.
No, Prabhuji, it is quite good. Maybe for
Okay,
that you would...
must be just an individual. Anyway, so as Prabhupada got in the car to leave Vrindavan and come to Hyderabad, sorry about that. So as he got in the car, he sat down. He said, "Now we're going to begin the next phase of this movement." So we had Jagadish Prabhu was Prabhupada's secretary at that time. He said, "What's that, Srila Prabhupada?" And Prabhupada said, "Varnashram." So he flew down to Hyderabad December 2nd, and we stayed, I think, until the 16th evening. And then from there we went north up to Warda, and then back over to Bombay. So let's go to the opening of the temple. Prabhupada came back from his last world tour on August the 13th, and then on the 16th, then he came to Hyderabad, and there was a very nice reception for Prabhupada. When we arrived there, we went there in the evening, and this group of South Indian Brahmanas were there, Sampak Kumar Bhattacharya and his men, and they organized all the pujas. They did the installation of course, your main deity is Radha Madan Mohan, yeah?
Radha Madan Mohan.
Yes. So they were already installed, and then these gentlemen came to inaugurate the temple, and also they installed the deities of Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram, and Gaunitai. So Prabhupada was coming for about 10 days. Normally, when he visited temples, he liked to, at least when he was on tour, he would move every 5 or 6 days from one temple to another. But with Hyderabad, it was a big project. There were not very many men there. Mahamsa Swami was in charge. He had been there for several years and cultivated this man, Mr. G. Pullareddy, and he had some land in the city center. So that was, let's see, the 16th or the 17th, and then there was Prabhupada's Viasa Puja the day after the Janmashtami celebrations. So it was very successful. We let's see. Just excuse me 1 second. I have to get a drink. Sorry about that. I'm croaking up here. I've got a sore throat. Anyway, so Prabhupada came down then in August to open the temple. That went quite successfully. There were a few glitches, which I'll explain in a minute. But when Prabhupada arrived, he was greeted at the airport by Sampat Kumar Bhattacharya and his men. They felicitated Prabhupada in the airport there. They asked him to sit down for a few minutes. They gathered around. They chanted all these different mantras, gave Prabhupada flowers, garlands, etc. And then from there, they took us to the temple. And there was the Jagyashala at one side of the building. And Prabhupada was again asked to sit for a few minutes as the Jagyaman, the person who's organizing the installation and opening of the temple. So Prabhupada sat very patiently through that. Then we thought Mahamsa would take Prabhupada up to his rooms in the temple. However, Mahamsa informed Prabhupada that his rooms were not quite ready, and so he asked Prabhupada to spend the night at Hare Prasad Badruka's house and then come back sometime in the morning to the temple. Prabhupada wasn't very happy about that, but there was not much that he could do, and he certainly didn't want to disturb the rhythm of the work. So he, without too much complaint, he drove they drove him the half-hour drive to Mr. Badruka's house. It was already late at night, so Prabhupada, of course, he was obliged, when you visit somebody's house, you should spend at least a few minutes with them. So Prabhupada was obliged to sit and talk with Hare Prasad for a while. And in the meantime, the rest of us, the rest of us either took rest or, as in my case, I had to give Prabhupada his evening massage before I could take rest. Anyway, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning by the time that we got settled in. At 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning, the next day, Prabhupada called Mahamsa and he said, now I want to go back to the temple. He said, it's not very good to stay in the house of another. If you have even, a simple setup for yourself, but you shouldn't stay in the house of another person. It's better to have your own place. So we packed up. Mahamsa took us back to the temple. And when we arrived there, of course, some construction work was still going on. And when we went up to Prabhupada's quarters, everything was covered in dust and cement, etc., etc. And it was really not livable. But Prabhupada didn't complain. He just told them, clean the room. So I had to sweep the Prabhupada's rooms. They were full of dust and dirt and debris. There's a small balcony which Mahamsa thought would be good to include in Prabhupada's rooms. He had a small balcony overlooking or into the temple room, but unfortunately that also was not finished. It was supposed to be like wooden doors or wooden glass, but they had not fitted the door. So there was like a thick velvet curtain hanging where the door was supposed to go. And of course that opened into the temple room. So whenever anybody was in the temple room talking or singing, having arati, the full force of the sound vibration would come right into Prabhupada's room. So it was very difficult for him to do anything, either sleep or do his translation work, his writing. It was very problematic. And Prabhupada didn't say too much, but he clearly wasn't very happy. Later on, after he'd settled in, I tried my best to clean everything up. And Prabhupada, he was sitting behind his desk. I came into his room and he started to complain a bit about the reception and about the fact that his rooms were not yet ready. And he told me, he said, actually, because their excuse, the devotees' excuse was that they were just about to install the deities the next day, so they were working flat out on making all the deity paraphernalia and deity rooms, kitchens, etc., make that ready. And that was why Prabhupada's rooms were not ready. But Prabhupada told me after he got settled in, he said, actually, the rooms of the spiritual master should be done first before the deities. So that was a little correction there, but it's interesting that he said that, and I'll explain why in a minute or two. So anyway, Prabhupada's sitting behind his desk. They had a cotton mattress for him to sit on, and he had on either side of him these big bolsters, the long, thin. So Prabhupada thumped the bolster. He said, this bolster, he said, it's like sitting on rocks. He said, it's as hard as a stone. So he wasn't very happy. But the installation, of course, was very successful. The chief minister of Andhra Pradesh, is it?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes. Who was I haven't got my diary with me, but there was anyway, chief minister came. There was several visits from a man called Sauri Narayan Reddy, I think, or something similar to that. He was the Minister for Endowments in Andhra Pradesh. So without going into the history of why the the Minister for Endowments, he came several times. He had been put in charge of about 40,000 temples in Andhra Pradesh because the Andhra Pradesh government had not confiscated, but they took over the legal running of all the temples in Andhra Pradesh, which we assumed later on was due to the government's desire to take control of all the money that was being given to Balaji. So, because we didn't discuss that, but Sauri Narayan, he was a nice man, pious, but he didn't know what he was doing as far as running temples. So they had control of all these temples, but they didn't know what was the best way to use all the money that was coming in from donations to Balaji every day. So he was seeking some advice and help from Srila Prabhupada, which Prabhupada was very happy about. But of course, politicians have their own agendas. Although this man was very nice, but he could not implement the advice that Prabhupada gave him or gave the government. Prabhupada told them that now you've taken control of Balaji's Lakshmi, Balaji's money. So he said not one single rupee should be spent for anything other than the purposes of Balaji's worship. Because there was some talk around that in the that the government was giving grants or loans from the money that was donated to Balaji to start factories and businesses and things in Andhra Pradesh and make it more materially advanced, as they like to imagine. So anyway, Prabhupada gave Mr. Narayan, not Narayan. Anyway, he gave him some advice, and this man was so nice actually that after all the festivities had finished, then he invited Prabhupada to come to his home, and about 7 or 8 members of the Andhra Pradesh cabinet and the main politicians, they all gathered there in the Minister of Endowments' house, and Prabhupada lectured to them for about 30-40 minutes. Again, he talked about Varnashram, because he explained that you're all government ministers, you're Kshatriyas, so your business is to provide the means for everybody to become more Krishna conscious, more spiritual. So that was well received. Prabhupada was very happy that Mahamsa had been able to get these contacts with the government ministers. But unfortunately, they, as I said, they couldn't take Prabhupada's advice. And as far as I know, nothing really happened afterwards for them to implement this Varnashram system that Prabhupada had in mind. So anyway, it was a successful festival, thousands of people came. Prabhupada was very happy that the temple had been opened, but he was less so with the management. It was our management. As he said about Mahamsa, he says he never says anything bad about anybody, and nobody ever says anything bad about him. He said, so that's qualification. But unfortunately, he wasn't such a good manager. So there were all these little things. Also participating was one of our sannyasis, Yashodanandan Swami. He had spent some time with these South Indian Brahmanas, both in Hyderabad and in their own place of worship. And they had become very impressed with him. He could chant for hours practically off by heart, especially the Brahma Samhita, etc. So he had like a photographic memory almost, and
Hare Krishna. Okay. Seems Prabhuji's internet, there is some problem. Just try to call. Let's see. So we can start Kirtan in Temple Hall just for a few minutes until Prabhuji is reconnected.
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Sivasari Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Vrinda. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gora Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare
We were trying
Hare.
to connect to hotspot. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
You can. You have any other smartphone project apart from only one you have smartphone? Any other? Any other?
Jaya Radha Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Radhe.
Oh. Any neighbors otherwise?
Jaya Radha Madan Mohan
Meanwhile,
Radha
we have
Madan.
an Anandmai group, global disciple here. Meanwhile, I tell him to share his experiences.
Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jai Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Hello, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan ki jai, Sri Sri Jagannath Subhadra Baladev ki jai, Sri Sri Gaunitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. We request His Grace Anandmai Prabhu to share. Meanwhile, Harishori Prabhu, his internet there is a problem. He's trying to connect. So, meanwhile, His Grace Anandmay Prabhu can share his experiences. You could connect Prabhu now? Okay, okay, okay.
Hare Krishna. So for a few minutes, we can speak a little bit about Srila Prabhupada in Hyderabad. As we have put all these photos here in the temple to keep the memory of Srila Prabhupada's visits in different years.
Yes, Prabhu. You joined, Prabhu?
From 1972 onwards, starting November 72, then April 73, April 74, and 75. Also, that was, I think, in April. And then 76 in August for the inauguration of the temple, official installation of the deities. And again, December 1976 for Prabhupada's visit to the farm and starting the farm project, New Naimisharanya there, 40 kilometers from here, 565 acres of land that had been donated by Badruka Trust. But anyway, so
he's speaking.
So Hare Sauri Prabhu, I'd like to say a few things, whatever he said about his meeting with the Endowments Minister, Tagi Suryanan Raju, not Reddy, Raju.
Right. Good
He's from
thinking.
Bhimavaram. So Bhimavaram is headquarters for the Rajus, very famous dynasty there.
Mm-hmm.
So the main point that Srila Prabhupada wanted to convey to the Endowments Department, not only the Minister of Endowments, but also later on with the Endowments Commissioner. Actually, earlier, that was in 1975, I think, that Srila Prabhupada had gone to Tirupati. No, not 75.
74.
74, yes, correct. 74, Srila Prabhupada came to Hyderabad, April 74. And we had a program, Prabhupada gave lectures in Secunderabad, at the, what's the school name? His High School. His High School. So in between the program, then there was a program arranged in Tirupati that with Srila Prabhupada, Endowments Commissioner had invited Srila Prabhupada there, and so along with the other disciples, we went there by bus, Prabhupada went there by plane, and we all stayed in Tirumala for at least 2 days. And we had the opportunity to take darshan of Lord Balaji along with Srila Prabhupada. That was very ecstatic, unique program, very unique. So on that occasion also, Srila Prabhupada has spoken to the Commission of Endowments. The main point that Prabhupada wanted to make is that all the donations that are given to Balaji, Balaji temple, Tirumala is the richest temple in India. So all the money that is given to Balaji should be used for Balaji, not for any other purpose. People are giving donations for Balaji. So the money should not be diverted towards industrial development or city amenities and all that. That has nothing to do with Balaji's money. Balaji's money should be used for Balaji. And that includes also temple construction, maintenance, amenities for pilgrims, prasadam distribution, and also printing of books. At that time also, TTD was printing books, magazine and other books. So that money should be used for the glorification of Balaji in that manner, not for any other purpose. Then the answer from the Endowments commissioner, he said, yes, Swamiji, yes, we are. But you see, we are keeping money in the bank. So fixed deposits are there. And of course, we do not know exactly what the bank is doing with the money. But as we need the money, we can take it back from the bank and we use for the right purpose for Balaji. But in the meantime, money may be used in different manner. So that is very difficult to manage. That money should be used only for Balaji. If you give the money to a bank, then you have no authority to tell the bank you must, don't give the money to anybody else. So that idea was given by Srila Prabhupada, and that was accepted by the Endowments Commissioner and Minister. They accepted the idea, but with this technical difficulty maybe there, financial difficulty, actually. Hare Prabhu is there, so that can continue.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I'll take up where I left off. Prabhupada had moved into his rooms, but they were not actually ready for him at that time. And later on, Prabhupada did tell me that it's more important to make the rooms of the spiritual master before even the deity room. So Prabhupada was there in his room. He had this hole in the wall. There was supposed to be a door that led out onto a small balcony so that Prabhupada could stay in his rooms, come out onto the balcony, and then people in the temple room, they would be like one floor below. It was like like from Prabhupada's room, it was like opening into like a mezzanine. So they had not fitted the door. All the sound was coming straight through this curtain. So I had given Prabhupada his evening massage. It was probably about 11 o'clock or something. And then as I was leaving his room, this kirtan started in the temple room below. So I had to peek from behind the curtain, and I was very surprised to see Lord Balaram come marching through the doors, so to speak. So the Brahmanas, they had Jagannath Baladev and Subhadra Devi, and one by one they brought them into the temple room and then brought them over to the front of the deity room. And as they brought them one by one, all our men were there. They were all chanting and dancing, and it was increasing as each deity came in. Then they picked the deities up and put them onto the altar, and then they had a big kirtan, and it was really I don't know whether any of you remember the Nam Hatha party, but there was a group of senior ISKCON sannyasis and brahmacharis, and Yashodananda and Achyutananda Swamis. They were the main ones, and so they were having, this really fired up kirtan. And as I was watching, I saw one of the South Indian Brahmanas, fellow with the big beard. All of a sudden, he stopped still, and he got this wild look in his eye, and then he outstretched his arms and he was clawing at the air as if he was like a lion or something. And then after a few moments, then he suddenly collapsed on the floor. And his compatriots, they came around, gathered around him, and then brought him back to external consciousness. And then he jumped up and then he started leaping up and down in the air as well. So it was quite an amazing sight. And it turned out that that particular fellow was the pujari for a deity of Lord Nrsingadev. So he got so fired up by our kirtans that it sent him into his Nrsingadev trance. So that was anyway. So in the next day, of course, that was the installation of the official installation. The chief minister came. I think somebody just mentioned there. His name was Miss Chana Puli Reddy. Is that it?
Yeah, I think Madri Chenna Reddy.
Okay, well, anyway, the chief minister was there. There was a big attendance, and Prabhupada was very happy to stand in front of the deities and wait for a few minutes as they were getting them finally ready for their first darshan. And all in all, things were very successful. And then, of course, the next day, it was Prabhupada's Viasa Puja day. So again, they built this marble asan, the Viasa asan, but the top half of it wasn't completed, just the base. But Prabhupada didn't mind. He sat there on the base, on the Viasa asan. And then I think he had, Gopal Krishna Maharaj was there. He was the GBC, so he spoke a little. And then, yes, so and then I think, anyway, one or two spoke. The governor spoke, glorifying Prabhupada. And they were very, very impressed with everything. So, who's that? 1 second. All right. Okay, so during the offerings, just a couple of days before, Prabhupada had received his annual Vyasa Puja book, and he had one of our men stand at the microphone and read out not the Vyasa Puja offerings themselves, but he simply had, I think it was Hare Krishna, he had him read the name of every temple that had put something there in that book. So there was about 70 or 80 temples. And Prabhupada told him to do that just to impress his audience about the extent of the work that Prabhupada was doing all over the world to spread Krishna consciousness. And as he normally did in India, he asked his hosts, that they should join with him and help him, because he said, I'm one man alone, but you all should take up the responsibility for spreading Krishna consciousness, because the Lord Chaitanya has ordered us to do so. So that was very nice. The festivities for Janmashtami and Vyasa Puja. I do remember it also at midnight on Janmashtami. Then they served out Ekadasi Prasadam to all the visitors. So let's see. one thing that came up also, I remember, whilst we were in Hyderabad was there was a lot of newspaper anti-ISKCON news going around. There was a paper called The Blitz, and they were adamantly communist. And the communists were trying to make a lot of problems for us throughout India by putting out false propaganda. They accused our men that were from the CIA. There's nothing spiritual about what we're doing. So Mahamsa, he had read out this newspaper article to Srila Prabhupada, which said, New Delhi, August 13th, so this was a couple of days before, Mr. Om Mehta, Minister of the State for Home, informed the Rajya Sabha, this is the main central government, that the government will order an inquiry into the activities of the Krishna Chaitanya Society, that's ISKCON, in Nadia district of West Bengal, to find out whether there was something fishy about it. So Prabhupada was not very happy, but he told the devotees, because by this time Tejas Prabhu, who was the temple president in New Delhi for several years, there wasn't much of a temple there, only 4 or 5 people, but Tejas was going out on a regular basis, and he was targeting all the government ministers. And so when the communists finally got this demand for information or inquiry, then Tejas was actually friends with most of the MPs, and he had sold Prabhupada's books and made most of them were life members. So we were getting a lot of good support from the MPs, etc. And then Prabhupada, he was fairly detached and aloof from the Communist Party of India's attempts to agitate against us. And he told us that during wartime, during non-cooperation movement, there was one very famous firm. They were supplying a printing machine. So they were supplying printing machines. They couldn't manufacture them. So they had 113 branches all over the world. So somebody questioned that if by boycott of your movement, if your firm is closed, so the manager replied, so what is the wrong there? He said, if one branch is closed, we still have 112 branches all over the world. So if the Communist Party of India, if they want to act like that, so we have our branches all over the world. In other words, the communists would try to shut us down, or individual temples, but Prabhupada was, okay, well, that's in Krishna's hands. Even if they do shut us down in 1 or 2 places, still, we've got so many centers all around the world, so our work will still go on. So, let's see. All right, so after the festivities, on the Sampak Kumar Bhattacharya's last day in Hyderabad, he came in to see Srila Prabhupada, and he thanked him. He was very impressed with everything, with Prabhupada himself, of course, and his disciples. And he pulled out this large Shalagram Shila, and he handed him over to Srila Prabhupada, and he said, I'd like to present this Shalagram Shila for your worship. Now, at this particular time in ISKCON's development, I think there was only one temple in the whole of ISKCON, or maybe two at the most, that had Shalagram Shilas. And Prabhupada had written in his books that Shalagram Shila worship is very important. We've not yet introduced it into ISKCON, but very shortly we will be. So when this Shila was given to Prabhupada by Sampak Kumar Bhattacharya, Prabhupada kept him sitting on his desk. He thanked him. He said, I may install the Shila in our Bombay temple, because the Bombay temple in Juhu was on the way up. So Prabhupada was thinking maybe he would install Shalagram Shila there in the Juhu temple. Anyway, so Sampak Kumar and his men all left. Prabhupada was sitting in his room. And then all of a sudden he asked me, he said, go and find Pradyumna. Pradyumna was a tall, skinny American devotee, one of the first devotees in ISKCON. And he was traveling with Prabhupada and doing all the corrections and Sanskrit editing of Prabhupada's translations. And Pradyumna also, his wife was on the party with us, Arundhati. So she was doing some cooking, but mainly her service was typing whatever Prabhupada had dictated during the previous night. In the morning, that tape would be given to Arundhati, and she would transcribe it on the spot. And then afterwards, the editing of it would be done by Pradyumna. And then after that, it was that particular manuscript would be sent to Los Angeles to get ready for publication. So Prabhupada in Hyderabad, so Prabhupada received this Shalagram Shila and he called in Pradyumna and he told him, now Bhattacharya has just given us this Shalagram Shila. So he said, I think that you can take him. If you like, you can take him and you can do every day some little puja, and that will be very nice. Prabhupada said that Pradyumna was inclined towards this kind of worship. In fact, he went as far as to say that he had saved Pradyumna from becoming a smarta Brahmin, because Pradyumna had spent a few months in South India learning various rituals and chanting mantras, etc. So Prabhupada said that he brought him onto his party just to save him from becoming a smarta. So Prabhupada told Pradyumna that now we've been given this Shalagram Shila, so if you like, you can do the worship. It's a very simple thing. Don't make it elaborate. You just get one small singasan for him to sit on. You get some tilak, a little sandalwood paste, and some flowers and tulsi leaf, and bathed with Ganga Jal. He said, Bas. The whole thing can be done in a half hour. So Pradyumna was very happy to receive that. And Prabhupada actually also, he told Pradyumna and Arundhati, if the husband is, if you're sick someday, then you can give him to your wife to do the puja. And later on, when your son grows up, they had a 6-year-old son, Aniruddha. He said when he grows up, then he can also inherit the worship. So Prabhupada was very happy to hand over the Shalagram Shila to Pradyumna. So then just after that, our time was up in Hyderabad. We were flying up to Delhi. It was the end of August, and we were going to celebrate Radhastami there. So when we arrived in the Delhi temple, it was not a big place. It was quite a small place, but it was much better than what we'd had previously. It was like a semi-detached house, and it was in Lajpat Nagar 3. So when we entered the temple room, of course, Prabhupada greeted the deities, and then he climbed up onto his Viasa to receive Guru Puja. The Viasa was quite large. It took up half the room, but there were a lot of neighbors that came to see what was happening. There were devotees there. Lokanath Maharaj had half a dozen brahmacharis or new bhaktas. They were going to be initiated during that visit. So the Guru Puja began. Because we got Radha Parthasarthi there on the altar. So Prabhupada's sitting opposite them. And as the devotees were coming forward to offer him flowers, Prabhupada seemed a little bit distracted. And I saw he was looking around the temple room. And then he caught my eye, called me over, and he said, "Where is Pradyumna?" So I went off to try to find out where Pradyumna was. And he had gone upstairs, he had found a room up there, and he had his Shalagram Shila set up on his asana, Singhasan, and he was just about to begin doing his puja. So when I came in the room, he told me, he said, "I'm just doing my puja, then I'll come down." So I went back to the temple room. I came over to Srila Prabhupada. He was called me over again. What's happening? Where is he? And I told him he's doing it. Pradyumna is doing his puja. And Prabhupada became very angry. And he told me, he said, "You go and tell the nonsense. First Guru Puja, then other." He said, "First Guru Puja." So this was, if you match that up with the remarks that he made in Hyderabad about how the spiritual master's room should be ready before even the deity's room. This is along the same thing. Just a week later, Prabhupada's telling Pradyumna that, first the worship of the Guru, then other worship. So that was an interesting episode. That was one nice thing about traveling with Prabhupada. These kinds of things, normally would not get recorded. It's just like one small incident, but the topic is very, very important. So by keeping a diary, I was able to keep a track of things that would not normally be recorded, on the tape recorder, etc. So. Okay. What time do we go till?
We can go for another 15-20 minutes. If some devotees want to ask some questions, they can ask.
We can take some questions if you like.
Yes, Prabhuji. Whoever has questions, they can raise hand so that we can unmute them. And Srivas Rajbir want to ask. You can ask.
Hare Krishna, Hare Prabhu. This is Srivas Rajbihari Das from ISKCON Hyderabad Temple. We are very fortunate to have your association with us this morning. So as I was remembering, I have been serving Hyderabad Temple from say 2 years or so now. And we have been here and we have heard from many devotees that, Prabhupada wanted some things in Hyderabad. There were two establishments here. One was the new Naimish Aranya, which is a farm, and we have this Radha Madan Mohan temple, which is in the city. So
Right.
we have heard that the Prabhupada told many things about what has to be done in the farm, what has to be done here. So if we can hear from you, because you were personally present, we will be very happy to hear those things which Prabhupada actually wanted in here in Hyderabad, that is New Naimisharanya and this Abbot's Temple.
Right, that was at Medchal.
That
project. Is that still running? That project?
Yeah, that project is still running, Prabhu, and we we have almost more than 50 acres of land within our control, and the rest all went back to Badruka ji and other things. In records,
Yeah,
there were
because
500 acres, but later on we lost it.
yeah, okay. I have, yeah, I've got quite a lot of notes on that particular visit. As I mentioned, when Prabhupada flew down to Hyderabad, it was on, I think, the 1st or 2nd of December. He was going there to spend at least 2 weeks at Medchow, at the farm there, New Naimisharanya. And as he got into the car to leave Vrindavan to go to the airport, Delhi and then the airport, he made that comment that now we're going to start a new phase of this movement. He didn't immediately say what it was, so Jagadish, who was the secretary, asked Srila Prabhupada, what is that, Srila Prabhupada? And Prabhupada told him, he said just one word, Varnashram. So he came down to Hyderabad for the 2nd time that year then, and specifically this 2-week period in 1976 December. And he wanted to sit there and at least get the basics set up and running nicely. There's a lot of information on that visit. I'm going to just give the essence of it now, but later on, if we do another session, I can get all the written work out, and then that will give us much more detail. But basically, anyway, Prabhupada came down to Hyderabad. He was staying for a few days at the temple because Mahamsa in the city, because Mahamsa had told him that things weren't quite ready to receive him at the farm. So Prabhupada spent 2 or 3 days in the city. And then he said, all right, I'm not waiting any longer. We shall go immediately. So we went to the farm. There was 560 acres, I think. And there was some visiting devotees. Hansaduta had a busload of brahmacharis there. They were touring India, doing kirtan, so they came for the portion at the farm. Hansaduta himself, I think, in previous year, 75 or maybe 74 even, he had become involved with the Hyderabad temple and especially the farm. So he had been sending some money from the West to help fund the development there in Medchow. Let's see. Prabhupada went out there. He said, I'm sitting, I came down here for this. He said, now you've got me sitting in the city, but I didn't come for that. For that, I came for the farm project. So I think after the 3rd day there, we went out, and they had not got any quarters ready for Srila Prabhupada. Just hold on. Sorry about that. So when Prabhupada got there, there was hardly any facility. There was a half-constructed little bungalow that they were making for Prabhupada himself. And then there were a few brick buildings to one side. There was a Gaushala on another side. And then there was all this land. And so Prabhupada immediately called Mahamsa Swami. It was funny actually, because Prabhupada told him, he said, I came here, you told me to wait in the city. When I asked where you are, you're at the farm. Now we're at the farm. And when I asked where is Mahamsa, oh, he's gone off to the city. This happened a couple of times. Finally, Mahamsa got himself to the farm. And Prabhupada started walking in the mornings around different areas of the farm, and he explained succinctly what he was trying to do with the farm, with this idea of Varnashram. So Prabhupada's idea of doing Varnashram was very, very simple. And this was the first place where he experimented how to set up a Varnashram community. So Prabhupada noted there are many villages all around in the district. So he said, you go out, you do Sankirtan, you advertise, ISKCON has got a place, you can come and get prasadam and chanting like that. Prabhupada's idea was to attract the local villagers by, excuse me, by going out every day and preaching in all the local districts and inviting people to come. And we were at 7 o'clock in the evening, we should have kirtan, like a small pandal, very small pandal. And then afterwards, we should feed them sumptuous prasadam. He said, in that way, then people will become purified. Then some of them may decide that they would like to practice devotional service. So Prabhupada said that we could give anybody who comes forward to become devotees, we can make available 1 or 2 acres of land. They are, after all, farmers. We should have little groups of houses in different parts of the farm, maybe 10 or 12 dwellings. There should be in the center of each of those districts, if you like. There should be a Vishnu deity, or it could be Hare Krishna. He said it could be Balaji, as long as it's Vishnu Tattva, whoever the local people prefer to worship. So I said in this way, we can have these small groups of like little villages all around. They'll work the same land. They'll retain their usual occupation as farmers, but it will become spiritualized by rising early in the morning and attending Mangalarati. Then they could go off and do their farming. And then in the evening, they should come back, again, gather before the deities, and then have some kirtan, etc. So that was it, basically. Very, very simple concept. And it should have been easy to implement. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, Mahamsa Swami was not very adept as a manager. And because Hansadutta was there, he was a GBC, but he was only visiting with his bus. And then Prabhupada had invited Tejas from Delhi to come and help manage this farm. So Prabhupada set up a system where there were 3 leaders, Hansadutta and Tejas and Mahamsa, and they should jointly run the farm and develop it. So that they were enthusiastic about it, but the execution was very poor. The first night they had the pandal. A lot of local people came, about maybe 150. There was a bunch of children that were running around chanting Hare Krishna as they were running. And they had this small pandal at 7 o'clock, and then they gave out nice prasadam. So the first day went quite well. Prabhupada was satisfied with that. So he said, now you do this every day, and then gradually people will want to come and live with us, recognizing the purity of the lifestyle and the devotees. So the first day went well. The second day, sorry. The second day, when they, sorry, excuse me one moment. I'm just on a call, Prabhu. I'll ring you back. Anyway, so on the second day, Prabhupada was sitting in his room, and they'd completed Prabhupada's house. By that time, he could live in it. And Prabhupada was kind of relaxing, chanting japa. There wasn't much chanting coming from outside. And about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening, Prabhupada rang his bell. I went into his room, and he said, what's going on outside with the program? So I had not kind of had a look around myself. So he told me, he said, go and see what's happening. So he had not gone out, but he knew something was not right. So I had to look around, the setup there. And I saw that they were distributing just plain rice in paper plates. And the rice itself, there was no sabji, no dal, nothing, just a clump of white rice, which was so badly cooked, it had all congealed together in big solid lumps. And this was the prasadam that they were going to give to the villagers. So I saw, when I walked across from Prabhupada's house, I saw that everybody who had been given this horrible gluggy rice, they took one look at it and threw it on the ground. Nobody was eating it. And even I saw a dog going up and sniffing it and walking away in disgust. So I went round the corner where the Goshala was. They'd set up some arena there for cooking. And I saw that the man that was cooking, he had these huge woks, and he was cooking the rice, and then he was scraping off the top layer of it because that was still nice, and putting it aside for himself and his family. So I made a bit of inquiry in it because I thought I recognized this so-called cook. And it turned out that he was the sweeper. So in the early morning, this man was out cleaning and, cleaning the toilets and sweeping the pathways and whatever. And in the evening, it seemed like Mahamsa had foolishly engaged the man in cooking. And we had Gaunitai deities there with us. So anyway, so I went back to Prabhupada's room. He had told me, bring me some samples of the prasadam. So when I came back in, I put it on his desk, this big congealed lump of rice. And I told him what was going on, that nobody was eating it. Even the dog wouldn't eat it. And the cook is actually a sweeper. Prabhupada it was one of the rare occasions when I saw Prabhupada become infuriated. He was so angry, and he demanded to know, where is Mahamsa? And then the reply was, oh, he's in the city. It's coming back later on. And then Prabhupada called for Jagadish. He was his secretary. He called for Tejas, who was supposed to be now, one of the Troika, one of the three leaders of that project, along with Hansadutta and Mahamsa. So he called them in, Hansadutta, Jagadish, and Tejas. And Prabhupada was, as I say, very, very angry, demanding to know why this horrible stuff has been given to the villagers. He said, once having come, they'll never come again. He said, this is, the idea is to give them sumptuous prasadam so that they'll, even if you're full up, you want to eat it. Not that you give them something so awful that they become, even if they're hungry, they'll not touch it. So he wanted to know, where is Mahamsa? Mahamsa wasn't there. So it was late at night by that time. So Prabhupada, he sent us to take rest. During the evening, actually, Hare Krishna Maharaj had come in from Germany over some problems there with the Sankirtan. So he was there as well. So anyway, Prabhupada was thoroughly disgusted. He said, nobody will touch this. And the next morning, which I think was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance day, then Prabhupada called the leaders into his room, and he really severely chastised them, because he cooled down a bit by that time. But he said, I am very angry. He said that you have given food which is not fit for a dog to eat. We sing this song, Radhikara Pakana Vivija Bhyanjana, that Radharani is engaged in cooking sumptuous foodstuffs for Krishna. And he said, and you have given you have given something that even the dog will not eat. So he was very, very upset. Anyway, he said, tomorrow I want to see at least 200 people in attendance. So you go out there and inform the villagers. So there was not you could say it was not an auspicious beginning to the development of the Medchal property. And maybe that was a harbinger of what was to come. They did manage to get a few programs together over the next few days. A few people started coming. And when Prabhupada was ready to leave, he told, he was having his massage at noontime. He sent me to get, Mahamsa himself came. So Mahamsa was not at all happy that Prabhupada had put Tejas and Hansaduta in joint charge of the project. And he pleaded with Prabhupada that it's very difficult to work with these men. I'm the one that collected all the money for the city center. Now I'm the one that, got the donation of this land. So I think I should run it. So Prabhupada told him, he said, in Kali Yuga, nobody should work alone. And just as he said that, we got a very loud, the tick-tick lizards. And Prabhupada looked up, he put his finger in the air, he said, confirmed. So even though the plea was there from Mahamsa that, he just needed a little time to get everything organized, Prabhupada could see that he was not actually competent with that management, and he wanted them to work together, the three leaders. So they promised they would. Prabhupada had shown them, the simple program. He'd given a simple blueprint for how to develop the land, and then set up these small villages with, say, 10 or 12 houses, and then induce people to chant and make them devotees. So that was a simple plan, but they couldn't do it. Prabhupada left Hyderabad to other programs, I think one in Warada. And then at the end of the year, he was sitting in Bombay, and Mahamsa came through, Mahamsa and Hansaduta, not together, but they came through and made their reports. And the first thing that Prabhupada asked them was what's happening with the pandal, what's happening with the food distribution, prasadam distribution in Hyderabad. And they had to report that the whole thing had fallen through. They'd stopped doing it. They were no longer distributing prasadam, etc. And basically they were just arguing with each other. So Prabhupada was extremely disappointed. But by that time, Prabhupada himself was very, very sick. It was getting more and more difficult to travel. These kinds of headaches for management were becoming too much for him. And so he just had to let it go. He still wanted these things to be implemented, but I think that he came to the conclusion by the early part of 1977 that these men were not competent to do it, and so that program was dropped. So that's a little what I remember from that visit to Medchal. If you have any questions, I can try and answer them if anything was not very clear. But on the whole, it was a big disappointment for Prabhupada.
Prabhu, Hare Krishna, thank you very much for enlightening us. In specific, I've heard that Prabhupada wanted these Vishnu temples in between these farms. And at one point, I've heard that Prabhupada also mentioned that, Prabhupada wanted these 24 forms of Vishnu, which are in Vaikunta, to be installed in small temples around this farm. So, do we have any diary entries of such an instruction from Srila Prabhupada?
Well, I just told you that.
Yeah. So, this Prabhupada specifically told
I'm not
24 forms of Vishnu.
Yeah, well, I don't recall whether there was an exact number. I'd have to look in my notes, so you could look in the Veda base and see if there's anything there.
In Veda base isn't there, so I have searched in Veda base.
Right, well, so that figure of 24, I have not heard before. Maybe it's just something Prabhupada said that we missed. But, at least a good number of groupings of these, small villages. He said that if they don't want to worship Radha Krishna, because in the south, Balaji, of course, is the popular deity. So Prabhupada said that they could install deities of Balaji or Lakshmi Narayan. He said any form of Vishnu can be installed. It's fine. So he was not, hung up about it has to be Radha Krishna, etc. Just any form of Vishnu. But the number of hamlets that he wanted to have established, I don't recall 24. I'm not saying it, Prabhupada didn't say it. I might not have been in the vicinity if he did. But at least anyway, your general understanding is okay, yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, thanks a lot for taking a lot of your time and giving us so much about Prabhupada and your experience. My basic question is that when we read Shastra, we got a phrase where it says that Lagumatra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hoy. That means having little bit of association of senior Vaishnavas, you get a lot of the benefit. But how do you realize that? One, do we need to really do consciously certain things such that we can get that benefit, or does it happen automatically? Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
So just repeat the first bit again.
My question is, we need to take the association of senior Vaishnavas.
Yeah.
How do you best utilize that association? Is that anything that consciously one has to do certain things such that we can get the best advantage of the senior Vaishnava association?
Yes, of course. That's the only way that we can make true progress. We have to hear from senior devotees. Doesn't just mean in our immediate vicinity, but it means the parampara also, going all the way back to Lord Chaitanya. That if we want to be accepted as members of Lord Chaitanya's movement, there are so many instructions and examples that we follow, and Prabhupada has incorporated into ISKCON. The process of Vaidhi Vidhi and there are two tracks. My brain's gone blank. Anyway, the point is that you have to be trained. We don't automatically become Krishna conscious. Krishna, of course, is always there, but we have to actively show him that we're serious about surrendering. We're serious about developing our relationship with him. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, that there's nobody more dear to him than his devotees. So even more important than worshipping Krishna is to worship Krishna's devotees. Krishna lives for his devotees, and his devotees live for him. So that has to be cultivated, at least in the beginning stages. Vaidhi Bhakti, we're not fully Krishna conscious, so sometimes we make slips on it, we're neglectful, etc., etc. So therefore, there's a sadhana which has been devised, which will keep us, if we just follow the rules and regulations under the direction of the senior devotees, then gradually we get purified. When we get completely purified and Krishna is happy with us, then he will reveal himself to such sincere devotees. But you can't get through to Krishna without going through Srimati Radharani, without going through Lord Baladev, without going through the Guru Parampara, the six Goswamis, etc. You could say that Krishna is in their pocket, and when he decides, then he gives us access. So we shouldn't think that we can just whimsically do whatever we like, or we should invent things. This is Sahajism. When a person's not fully Krishna conscious, then they should accept a humble position, and they should study and act very nicely. Then they'll be accepted. But otherwise, there are people, as Prabhupada used to say, the Prakriti Sahajiyas, without following the strict instructions, they imitate Rasa Leela, Krishna's dealings with his devotees, etc. So that's highly offensive because they mix in their own mental concoctions, materialistic concoctions of Krishna consciousness, so that they can somehow or another, claim that they're very dear to Krishna. It's not possible. You have to follow very nicely, and gradually, everything will flourish. Krishna reveals himself more and more. Does that help?
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Your Grace kindly accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. In the regard, our beloved Anandamayi Prabhu said that Srila Prabhupada has commented that Lord Balaji's money should goes to the service of Lord Balaji. But many times during our preaching, many people question this, that Balaji money is going to different religions, the people who are encouraging against Sanatana Dharma. So in this regard, if people questions, how to answer, please?
Well, I mean, we've got our opinion, which Prabhupada, expressed several times to the Minister of Endowments. But they have their own agenda. I mean, there's a reason. I think one of the reasons that the government took over the running of all the temples in Andhra Pradesh was because the funds that were coming in, especially to Balaji, they were not being utilized properly by the trusts, like public trusts that were running it. So this is what I've been told. I don't know how true it is, of course, but apparently other people say that the government saw how much money was going through the temple there and decided somehow or another, by hook or by crook, they would acquire that and spend that money, for non-religious purposes. So, of course, there's a lot of sentiment there for Balaji, and the government had to be very careful. So they appointed this Minister for Endowments, and he was trying to figure out himself. He openly admitted, I have no idea what this money should be used for. It belongs to Balaji, that's all right, but how to utilize it. So he came to Prabhupada several times and asked Prabhupada to give some directions on what should be done. And Prabhupada's response was very simple and straightforward. not a penny should be taken from Balaji's money or Dakshina's and used for anything other than spreading Krishna consciousness. He said, just like I have so many temples, you send any so-called Brahmana, you send any person to come and stay and live with us, very quickly they'll become purified and they'll become the perfect servants of Balaji. So Prabhupada was very keen that they spend it the proper way. He said, otherwise it will be a big offense. So I don't know what the political situation is there, but you have to make sure that you don't stir it up too much. Prabhupada himself met with the almost 7 or 8 cabinet ministers, told them the same kind of thing. So I'm into Hyderabad for many years. I have no real idea of what's going on there anymore. But definitely from our point of view, not a cent, not a paisa should be spent on anything except programs that promote Prabhupada's books, nice prasadam, etc. Okay. Does that answer your question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. I am Lakshmi
Jai.
Narasimha.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Could you speak loudly, please?
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji, for taking your time and a valuable time and sharing to us. My question, one question is as you mentioned, Prabhupada has told the next wave of movement is going to start, and that is about the Varnashram. Is it the first time in Hyderabad? Is it started, or prior to that, is Prabhupada has already started Varnashram, or is it the first time?
Well, of course, Prabhupada had spoken about Varnashram. You will find in, I think, 1973 or 74, Prabhupada started to push the idea of having these self-sufficient farming communities, where people you grow your own food, build your own house, make your own cloth, grow your own medicine. If you have those items, you can be self-sufficient, and you'll have lots of time for practicing Krishna consciousness at the same time. So you'll see that quite a number of properties were purchased for that purpose from about 73, 74 onwards. No, sorry. And when Prabhupada went to Medchal, I don't know. I don't think I can say specifically that was the first occurrence of the attempt to begin Varnashram. Especially, you got New Vrindavan in America, which was there right from the beginning, practically in 1968. You got Gita Nagari farm. So there were, I think, New Talavan. We got a farm in Australia. There was a lot of interest to begin these kinds of self-sufficient communities. So I don't think that Medchal was the first one, but you could say that, Medchal was going to be, like a model on which others, other communities could develop from. So it was a little unusual for Prabhupada to go there and spend so much time, pushing one particular aspect. But it shows the keenness that he had that we take up Varnashram. And in early 1977, in February, I think the 14th, there's quite a long conversation between several GBCs and Srila Prabhupada, with Prabhupada telling them that I want you to introduce Varnashram system immediately and don't delay, because he said that unless a person is actually purified and trained up in the Varnashram system, then it's not possible for them to make any advancement with this human form of life. in other words, you become human when you begin actually practicing Krishna consciousness according to the Varnashram structure. So that's still endless talks have gone on about that, but the only way that you'll actually do it is to actually do it. If somebody does it successfully, then other people will follow the example. But so far as I've seen, I think only like there's a farm in Hungary under Shivaram Maharaj, which is about 80%, I'm told about 80% developed and successful, growing the food and etc. There may be other places, I don't know. But definitely it's something that Prabhupada wanted, but it's something that we've yet to achieve. So it looks like we're having to, pass down to the new devotees the instructions that Prabhupada gave us, his disciples, because we're all getting so old. It's difficult to, get these things. Get the not get the energy, but it's just difficult when you get old to start new projects such as this kind of thing. But hopefully, some of you will definitely do it. Yeah.
So,
Did
thank you.
that answer your question?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much.
Yeah, Prabhupada did say that 50% of my work is not done. We still have Varnashram to implement.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, one last question. I see it's getting quite late here.
Okay.
Any question?
Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam, Prabhuji.
Yeah, is there any more questions? I'll give one more.
Yes, Prabhuji. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
First of all, kindly accept my most humble obeisances at your holy feet, and thank you so much for sharing the insight about Prabhupada and your experiences. We are truly grateful to you. My question is can you just share something about that? Like Prabhupada said that it's the time to boil the milk now. So can you elaborate on that? That whether Prabhupada wanted that whatever devotees we have in ISKCON, so let us focus on them, or so what exactly was the meaning of that? That it's time to boil the milk.
Well, yeah, Prabhupada saw that we were expanding very rapidly in the early 1970s. He actually told me, he said, this movement didn't really begin until 1968. The first couple of years, he was just scouting out the arena, so to speak. But after 1968, things started to pick up. Or maybe 72, 73. Sorry, just repeat your question again.
Hare Krishna.
Just repeat your question again.
My question is like when Prabhupada said that it's time to boil the milk
Yeah,
now.
okay. So
whether
1970, in the 1970s, we were getting more and more deities installed, and Prabhupada was trying to increase, the standards throughout ISKCON. So he was working very hard at that. Just say your question again. I'm sorry. Just repeat your question.
Hare Krishna. My question was that when Prabhupada said this, that it's a high time now and we should now focus on boiling the milk. So whether Prabhupada wanted that whatever devotees we have in ISKCON, So should we focus on them and groom them nicely in Krishna
Well,
consciousness, or
yeah,
should we
okay.
keep
So
on
when Prabhupada
collecting
wrote
more
that,
and more?
when Prabhupada wrote that letter about boiling the milk, he saw with this rapid expansion, but he had hardly any, persons who were trained up in Vaishnav culture and practice. So he saw that people were coming and going very rapidly, and therefore he suggested that we should not be keen to open up too many temples. Let's consolidate with what we've got, and then we can, push on. So he was very concerned. He said, I don't want, people who just go out and sell books if they're not reading them. He said, this is the problem. He said, you're very expert at selling books, but you don't read them. He said, who am I writing these books for? I'm writing them for you, my disciples. So he was very keen, not just that we do, like superficially some service of one kind or another, but that we go deeply into it, really understand it, really imbibe Vaishnav culture into our activities, into our mental framework and our intellectual framework. So, yeah, you boil the milk. That doesn't mean that you should stop everything else, and just concentrate on our own people. The preaching must go on, but we should still be very careful to make sure that it doesn't become so watered down, just, in the name of making how many new devotees, how many books are sold. That's all right, that can go. But we have to really realize what the value of what we've got, of what Prabhupada gave us. We have to really realize the value of that, and it will develop. Therefore, he was very happy when young Indian devotees would join, young men like yourselves, when they would join, because he saw that they would carry things forward into the future, because they have this automatic, like a birth in India automatically gives you some touch of the culture. Yeah, both things have to be there. Boil the milk, but at the same time increase. Is that okay?
Subir Prabhu.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for this clarification.
Yeah, no worries. All right, I'm going to finish here. It's getting late and I've got people waiting to see me. So
we thank you, Prabhuji, for your kind association. So please.
Well, I apologize for the beginning because things weren't set up properly at my end, and we can do sessions again sometime, anytime I'm here in Mayapur, and we'll try and do it more in an organized fashion. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
I'm very grateful to you all for the interest that you're showing, and yeah, let's do it.
Please bless us and pray for all of us, so that we can serve Srila Prabhupada properly here at ISKCON Hyderabad.
Yes, definitely.
So we'll thank Prabhuji for his kind association by loudly chanting 3 times. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Jai.